From the shores of Puget Sound, this is GreenerViews, a unique media resource for information, education, consultation, and fun. GreenerViews is a part of the Healthy Homecast network and is brought to you exclusively by HealthyPainting.com and AmbrosiaDigitalMedia.com. Each episode will introduce and connect you with services, products, practices, organizations, and groups that focus on the health, happiness, safety, well-being, charity, and community of all. Find us on the web at www.greenerviews.net. And now, your host, Daryl Whalen.
Hello, and welcome to episode 30, yoo-hoo, of GreenerViews. I'm Daryl Whalen, along with audio producer Randy Parcel and video producer Michael Schwartz. And we have our first studio audience back there, but we'll just leave that up to your imagination out there as to who that is. But let me tell you, there's some special and great folk. On our last episode, number 29, our guest was Gina Bordage from Discover Burien, talking about community business organization. And joining us this time around is Gretchen Stewart from TM4 Group and Bob Angeline from the Washington Department of Commerce Lead-Based Paint Program. GreenerViews is a part of the Healthy Homecast network and is brought to you exclusively by HealthyPainting.com and AmbrosiaDigitalMedia.com. So let's see how I know Gretchen. As a contractor and a business owner, for those who are listening or viewing that don't know, it is the law to be lead trained and certified as a business. And the company that Gretchen works with provided the great training that I took myself, and then I passed on to my employees. Got myself together there, and as well as lead training, they also facilitate some amazing in-depth healthy home trainings that I know that we're going to hear more about. Mm-hmm. And Tom, the guy that my work partner and I took the training last year, it was educational, inspiring, and a real asset to the direction that our business has been in for a little while now, and definitely where we're headed. So I don't know Bob, though I do know I have the inside scoop on the stuff that we're talking about, since I kind of run the show and got to look at the questions ahead of time. But I do know that we're in for a treat here with Gretchen and Bob, so I'm really excited about it. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daryl.
And thank you for joining us this evening. We have a lot to get to, therefore let's get right into things. Let's start with you, Gretchen.
Sure.
Please tell us, what is the TM4 Group?
Well, TM4 Group is a training organization, and we currently do RRP lead certification, which is a requirement by the state of Washington Department of Commerce, and EPA. We also do, as Daryl referred to, the Healthy Homes series. This is an 8-week in-depth series, and it's for building professionals, remodelers, construction design professionals, and really even for health professionals or parahealth professionals, because oftentimes when we're trying to identify health problems, oftentimes they do start in our homes. Not the place we'd like to. We think of that as our sanctuary, but sometimes the asthma and many other triggers actually occur in our homes. So TM4 Group actually instructs those types of courses.
Yeah, and it attracts a group of amazing people. I took the class last year, like I had mentioned, and it was an 8-week course, once a week, and the types of people that were at the thing ran the gamut, from people that were just homeowners and people that wanted to make sure that their home was safe, to medical health people and landscapers and builders and just all kinds of neat stuff.
Well, there's actually a new wave, too, of people asking more questions before they make a purchase. So we've found that real estate professionals are finding this very valuable because they oftentimes can't answer questions for people who've had health issues or multi-generational living in one home now, or they need to think about the mom and pop or others with types of diseases that many of our building materials now create and exacerbate. So even real estate professionals are taking this course to become more efficient for their clients.
Yeah, and I didn't mention that the people that facilitate each of the individual classes are just, for myself being in this business for decades, hearing some of these people talk for several hours a night, it's mind blowing. Their knowledge and their information and the background that they share. So, what is your position title and what are your specific roles and responsibilities with TM4?
Interesting. I guess I assume the position of business manager, and there's 3 partners. All 3 have their areas of specialty. All 4 of us actually come out of the construction industry. My background was actually in education and training and marketing. And that's why I assumed the position a little bit more of the business management head of it. The other 3 partners, Pathway Construction and Design, Doug Kennedy, John Alexander with Sunshine, and Eileen Gagney with American Lung Association with her vast and amazing experience in terms of healthy homes, master home environmentalist. She brings to that about 2-3 decades worth of work with health issues and children with asthma and other issues. So very valuable course in terms of the expertise that we harness.
Great. So can you just briefly tell us about the history of TM4 and how it got together and who and how started it and where?
Well, that's kind of an interesting metamorphosis, I suppose. I was working with Master Builders Association, and through Master Builders Association, through Built Green of Washington, through Master Builders Association, I had the privilege to meet John Alexander and Doug Kennedy and Eileen Gagney. They had been working on reviving the the Healthy Homes for Building Professionals course. This particular course, like many things, was well before its time. And tonight when Bob and I talk about lead paint, we're going to come up with this same theory. Many things launch before their time. They need a little bit of a dormant period and then they start again. Well, that's true with the Healthy Homes for Building Professionals. Actually, there was a group that put together that class clear back a decade ago, conducted the class, and then the interest waned. And again, all of a sudden, it's rebirthed, both because many people are looking at sustainability, healthy homes, building built green kind of homes. And so the same cast of characters that put together that course 10 years ago came back together with a new group of partners, and they re-envisioned this class. And while I was at Master Builders, we had the opportunity to launch it. Unfortunately, the building industry compressed, as we all know. It got a little bit smaller, and Master Builders needed to, at that time, reconsider their university because of the employment issues. And John Alexander, Doug Kennedy, and Eileen Gagney and myself decided we would take this show on the road. So we've continued with the Healthy Homes class, and we're thrilled because now we have well over, I think, almost 200 students that have been educated and are out there now actually discipling the practices of healthy homes. And that's really what we'd like to do. We'd like to continue to multiply that.
Yeah, not to mention the legal issues that has been quite a motivator or an incentive to drive this type of work.
All the new regulations, you bet.
Yeah, and we'll be talking plenty about that. So who's the target clientele for TM4?
Well, originally when we started to do actually our target marketing, we were going directly to the construction industry professionals. So we were looking at people that were in the industry at that time. They were builders, they were remodelers, designers made up a small component of it at the time, but mostly construction industry. That was specifically for the regulatory part of our training, which is the RRP lead certification part of it. However, we discovered very rapidly that in the healthy homes, as I just mentioned, really, it really is is very, very diverse. Everything, as you mentioned, from the health professionals and real estate professionals, and actually individual homeowners who really, really want to do well by their family to keep their families home. So that's hit a whole new niche, and it's just across all industry sectors and all interests.
Great. And then one more question, and we'll get to Bob about the same thing here. So why is what you do, TM4, why is what they do important, and what benefit does it serve?
Well, I think the number one benefit is that you never get a second chance with a child with lead. You don't get a second chance. It isn't something they get to heal from. or to get over. Once they've had it, and it's forever. And so I think that the greatest value is to empower people to make good decisions before that happens. So I think that that's the greatest value.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Okay, Bob, so please tell us, who are you representing here this evening? What is your position title and your specific roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, I'm with the Washington State Department of Commerce. That's has several components to it, but the one I'm associated with is the housing division. And in that, we're a small organization called Lead-Based Paint, and so we have two programs, both the lead abatement rule as well as the renovator rule. So we have the accreditation for the training that such as TM4 has with us through the state, and we do certification of all the renovators and lead-based paint, abatement workers, supervisors, lead inspectors, risk assessors, project designers. My role at Commerce is compliance and enforcement specialist. And compliance, it also has an outreach component. And that's why I'm here this evening, to let folks get familiar with the state program and see the face of the enforcement folks as well. And that's what's going on there.
In our conversations, Bob and I have had many, many, many opportunities to interface with each other and talk about what our driving passion is. And even enforcement, the part of enforcement that's so important is education. And what we found, and one of the reasons that we were pleased to be here this evening, is that there's so many unique perceptions out there. There's as many perceptions as there are almost opinions with people. And until they have a solid place for information, we can't bust those perceptions. And we need to do that so that people understand why it's critically important, both for their own personal health, but also the health of everybody else they're in contact with. So
yeah, and we're going to be going through those perceptions there in a little bit. Yeah, it's interesting. When I had taken your first class, the lead training, that was, I guess that was a couple of years ago now.
Yeah,
it was interesting to hear some of the people in the class, some of their ideas about, why they were there and some of their thoughts about being there and, why are we here and stuff like that. And so I had heard, across the whole gamut about, people's ideas and stuff. And, I imagine... I like what you had said about, you're being here to be, in a sounding board and a resource and stuff. You're not going to be, you're not the bad guy.
I can be the bad cop occasionally. Have to be sometimes. That's the way it's perceived, I'm sure.
Yeah. For some people, it is.
Yeah.
For myself, without taking a lot of time on it, I've talked about it on episodes. So, I started in the late 70s as a painting contractor in Ohio, and I didn't really know that much about, obviously nobody really knew that much about the lead thing then, but I certainly knew a lot about the practices and the products and everything and the things that I had seen people doing. Like, it was just totally common practice. I brought it up on the show several times where people would just throw their... oil, their leftover paint thinners and oil paints and stuff behind the person's garage. That would be like, what do we do with this stuff? You throw it behind the garage. I mean, why would you even ask, And I just knew, I was pretty young at the time, and I just knew there's something is not right about this, and I started taking a change towards that and seeing the different types of stuff on the ingredients of the materials and stuff, and it's, to me personally, it's just really, really exciting that that things are, coming around the way they are. I mean, Doug and I get to talk about, you know, the environmental type of stuff, and this is really what it's all about.
Well, Daryl, you were an early adopter. We wish there were millions more who had been early adopters and who'd read the paint can labels than others. Off camera, we were talking about the fact that I used to strip antiques, and even at the time didn't have the common sense to realize you wear a mask, you read the content, and you don't dump it behind the garage. So, you know, thank God there were some early adopters out there. We've got a lot of late adopters right now, and those are the ones we need to reach. And we also have to reach people who know nothing about it, because it's still a huge silent situation still.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, it's undetected harm that's done to children by their parents who love them dearly, but they're doing their own home restorations. And, you know, they don't even see the dust as an issue and how it can be so toxic. And that's what this program's all about. It's not about, you know, the state wanting to make money with fees and fines and such, but it's you know, in our statute, the preamble to our statutes talks about the children under the age of 6. You know, that's for the state of Washington. That's what this rule is, to protect them from the harm associated with working with painted materials and impacting that paint, making dust chips and what have you, fumes that can be very toxic and harmful.
You know, it's interesting. Bob and I had a chance to kind of do some preamble to this, and the old adage, and I still laugh about it, about that, you know, lead paint could have been, or lead itself, could have been the fall of Rome, you know, when we think about it. And Bob was sharing with me a piece I didn't know, because I knew about the fact they added lead to the wine to sweeten it. I mean, that was enough, and of course, even children drank the wine at that time. But Bob was sharing with me about the water pipes, and it was very fascinating.
Yeah, they took... you know, lead's a very malleable metal, and so it can be rolled out just like cookie dough, right?
Yeah.
Or pie dough. And then it's just rolled into a pipe. Just, you know, rolled into a pipe, and that was what transported the water into the Romans' homes and lined their aqueducts, you know, so that, you know, they would last for a long time. And so... when lead is new and water going over it, that will leach some of the lead into the water supply. Over time, though, calcium deposits fill the bottom of that pipe, and the water rolling over that is no longer, you know, breaking down the lead. So that happens over time. But so it may be somewhat exaggerated that it was the fall of Rome, but that's what you often hear folks say. And you know, when I first took my first lead class, lead inspector class, the health effects, they talked about that issue with the fall of Rome.
Well, now with our scientific equipment too, though, I mean, we can, and the blood tests that they do on small children, and certainly we're talking more and more and more in our outreach now to alert physicians to be looking for potential issues with children and lead, and do a very quick finger prick to get that test for lead in their blood, because it does go undetected. It could go undetected for numbers of years. But I think that when now we know and we quantify that, you know, you can't have lead over X, and I'm not going to quote X because I'm not the expert. Bob could do that for me. But, you know, back then no one would have even thought it would have been a silent killer, or it could have created these issues. So I think that's another piece of looking at the education with the history. And in Europe, they were way ahead of us.
Yeah.
Way ahead of us. I mean, we're talking the...
Yeah, early 20th century.
Yeah.
In Britain, they were advertising a paint. Aspinalls was a brand, I believe. And this was a 1914 advertisement. And they were touting the fact that this was paint that didn't contain the toxic lead. And they were quite proud of that, you know. That was a better grade of paint to choose.
Isn't that
they
amazing?
knew about that. Well, you know, we've known about it about lead for centuries.
Yeah, well, you know, it was it's just like a lot of the stuff like that they use overseas and the paints and stuff that just on toys and everything. It's so prevalent, and they, you know, whether they did or didn't give it a lot of thought, but at one time lead was like everywhere, and they never gave it. It's not until it really gets us to that we really start to. I mean, there was a time cigarettes were practically considered, certain brands of cigarettes were considered healthier than others.
Yeah, don't get me started on the menthol part.
Yeah.
That was specifically designed for women smokers.
The country out of Salem or
something? So I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and there's a lot of poor people in Cleveland, and I've gone even recently and looked at it. But you know, the one thing I talked about the painting thing, but the one thing that I was aware of, but it even took me much longer to like catch up on the idea, was it was a real issue about all the kids and stuff that were getting all the lead poisoning that were living in the. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody wasn't affected, but in the poorer parts of town where they weren't able to, you know, afford the upkeep and the maintenance, and there was all the peeling paint and stuff, and those of us who have some knowledge of it know that it's a very sweet tasting thing.
That's
and everything,
right.
And it's very appealing and attractive to children. And they were eating this stuff, and it was a big epidemic. And from what my understanding is that it still is, and
still is.
Yeah.
In places like Camden, on the even further east. But again, you're looking at housing stock that's very old.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure houses in Cleveland probably are, some of them in the 20s and 30s and even older.
Yeah, much older, yeah.
So you're looking at layers and layers of lead paint. You're looking at wooden windowsills, which children just seem to gravitate to.
Yeah.
And you know, put their little mouths and hands all over.
You'll see their teeth marks along.
Yeah, you can see their teeth marks along there, you know. And like you say, it's sweet.
Yeah.
It's a sweet thing. So, again, it's looking at that in terms of the RRP rule and what has been discovered through all of this, and what we talk about and what our outreach is that anytime you interrupt that paint, anytime you're going in to tear out the windows or to replace, or you start sanding those windowsills to repaint them, to get rid of all those little teeth marks on there, then you're interrupting lead, and you've got that airborne, and you're truly exacerbating the issues now. So for people to realize it's just not a simple process, we need to be thinking more about it and how to get more information, where are the resources to find that information out now, how to make people curious enough to look before they do the work.
Yeah. So what is exactly the lead renovation program? Is that the IRP, or is that something separate?
Well, yes, it is. That's really what is happening these days. It started, you know, the history of our program was in 2004, the state of Washington was authorized to administer the lead-based paint abatement rule. And that only dealt with homes that were HUD-funded, Section 8 properties, and child-occupied facilities.
Yeah.
Every other home was off the chart. It wasn't part of a rule until 2008. The RRP rule was launched.
Yeah.
I think it was in April.
March, April of that year.
Yeah.
Correct.
And it wasn't until like 2009 or 2010 where it actually became...
Training came on board in 2009, and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, now we're seeing, you know, quite a good contractor base out there now that's certified. But still the problem remains now that people want, you know, they want to do work themselves, and the rule doesn't discourage or control that activity, but the dangers are great when someone is, you know, a young family, they've moved into a nice craftsman home in the inner city, and they're going to do some renovations. You just see it all over television, and we, you know, rarely see anything mentioned about lead-based paint on television. It's too bad. I think it should be mentioned more regularly. They do now mention asbestos issues, but I haven't heard much about lead-based paint, and yet let's hope that they do. But so these families, you know, they need to understand that there are safe, easy ways to work with lead-based paint.
Yeah.
And there's a great manual that I always refer to do-it-yourselfers.
Yeah.
It's called a field guide. I wrote that.
I should have had some of mine ready. I have a whole box full of all the manuals.
It's well, there'll be an attachment to the program here.
Yeah, there's plenty of them, and then we'll have information on, and people can find it. But it's interesting that you say, because you know, this is like my field of work, so I know exactly what you're saying. But it's interesting going into the different hardware stores and the neighborhood hardware stores, and even some of the bigger, like the bigger box stores and stuff. You don't see any of this information, any of these pamphlets or brochures that you're talking about. You don't hear anybody that works there. Or I mean, rarely, if ever. And this is hear people having conversations about the lead thing at all.
If you go into a large box store, home improvement store, you might find a few pamphlets that contractors might see. You know, they might be led to them in some cases, you know. And,
it's pretty rare,
but
though.
it's not something that's accessible. It's not a household word. Lead isn't really a household word.
It isn't a household word, and we'd sure like to make that.
I think the issues with toys that have been coming into our country, and we're finding out that the paint in some cases contains lead at quite a serious level, and yet now it's under control, down to 90 parts per million. This is a good step.
Yeah.
I think even Washington State was one of the leaders in moving it forward to that 90 parts per million.
I believe along with that as well, you know, we talk about lead in terms of lead paint and working in the construction industry and maybe the do-it-yourselfers and such. But really, we have a lot of other issues regarding that in terms of children's environmental health. And one of the newest is that for years and years now, they've put ground-up tires in all the playground areas.
Yeah.
And now they're discovering that those ground-up tires have lead in it. So therefore, without knowing and without understanding, we've exposed, again, millions of children to something that's truly an environmental toxin.
Yeah.
So again, it's knowledge. Where do you go to get the right information? And I know both Bob and I, everyone at TM4 Group, we're really dedicated to just giving them the resources to make the best possible decision, because it is a big decision. It is a big decision about, what do I use for paint? Do I do this myself? Do I hire a contractor?
Yeah.
And if you're going to hire a contractor, make sure they're certified.
Yeah.
But how do I find that out? Well, we can give you that resource. We can show you where to go to make sure that you hire a licensed, bonded, and certified contractor, too. So all of that weaves together.
Yeah, I could go into so much about all this, but I'm going to refrain myself a little bit. I think you know, I have one of these fancy, one of these fancy phones and stuff, and I think we need if every single person had an Eileen Gagney app on their smartphone, I think we would be a lot more informed.
Yes, we certainly would. Well, we're trying to do that. I think in the Healthy Homes class this quarter, which begins April 12th, we've expanded it. It was 6 weeks, now it's 7 weeks, now it's 8 weeks with 2 field trips. So it just keeps getting more and more and more information, more in depth. But I think Eileen's actually doing 3 classes this time.
Yeah. But like you say, I mean, those of us, most all of us in this room are people that are, you know, embroiled in this word and this knowledge, this world and this knowledge on, you know, if not a daily basis, sometimes an hourly basis and stuff. And so it's part of our vernacular and it's part of our world. But the average person that might even be next door here might not even have an idea.
Not a clue.
Yeah,
like the asbestos thing, everybody knows about.
Right. Asbestos is, you know, it's fairly common knowledge that it's.
But look how many years it took.
Yeah.
I mean, asbestos and the regulatory requirements of asbestos abatement or working with asbestos, or even today taking that popcorn ceiling down. You know, you need to have it tested and blah, blah, blah. And it's 25 years, isn't it, Bob? I mean, it's been a long metamorphosis for it to become such a common word.
Taking that down by doing it yourself, you're doing a lot of harm to yourself, as well as for a long time in that home. That airborne fiber is
Yeah.
is
Everywhere.
available. And
Yeah.
you just think, you have your kids come in that house, they're breathing that. Who knows what might happen in 20
Yeah.
to 30 years.
And people do that without even using like tarps or containment or anything.
No. Well, we certainly hope that lead doesn't take 20 to 25 years to become common knowledge. I mean, we'd really like to expedite the process of everybody understanding it. And I really appreciate, Daryl, that you just brought up about both all the construction stores and lumber companies and others, because I think that we could very rapidly get this information out to everybody, the do-it-yourselfers, even the construction industry that doesn't know right now. If we could get them to kind of be in partnership with us to help us inform people, because they're front line. If they see someone coming in and they're buying XYZ to do something and they're conversing about it, hey, have you given some thought about the lead? Did you research this? I think finding those kind of partnership and collaborations to help move this issue into the forefront would be wonderful. And I know that's part of what we want to do at TM4 and what we do in our educational outreach as well. So.
Well, we have to be small, and then it'll work its way out. Unfortunately, when you have issues with companies and corporations, you have bottom lines, and you have commerce, and you have profits involved, and sometimes reality.
We also have a litigious society, and sometimes it's very difficult for larger stores to be able to take a stand and help people in this. So people have to become really wise consumers as well. Bob once said something, we were chatting, and he says nobody would intentionally, be it in construction or other, harm a child. So it's never with intent. But even the smallest thing, and I can remember in a class, and I can't remember if Doug Kennedy, who is part of our audience this evening, we're blessed to have him here, actually made the statement, or one of the other instructors, but they were talking about a person who works with lead dust and doesn't wear proper protective gear or whatever. And they go home and they have a precious little 4-year-old. 4-year-old comes running to daddy, jumps up in his arms and hugs him, and he just got covered with lead dust. And both daddy and child now have had this problem. Daddy's had it, the child's had it. And nobody would intentionally do that, but I want that picture, that mental picture, to be in everybody's brain. Everybody's brain.
Yeah, you and I have talked about why isn't it a household word? And I think our schools, I'm thinking if we could develop curriculum, it's really not difficult. I'd be willing to work with curriculum development for 5th graders. I mean, it's a science class, and they could learn about the toxicity of lead, how the health effects might happen. What are the routes of exposure? It's dad at home. He's working, making sinkers. He's grinding the paint off of the house. He's chipping it, and it's flying all over. A 5th grader could bring the knowledge home to dad. And then I think the 5th grader is a real activist, because they've taken in the knowledge and they understand it. And but later on, maybe in the junior year of high school, it could be at a higher level where it's part of the construction trades. It's hobbies that you might get involved in, reloading or making sinkers or working with stained glass or this sort of thing, and maybe paints that you use on your boat or these kinds of things that are still available. And it's still a problem. We don't regulate it. In the lead-based paint program, it's a paint program, all paint-based. But these are important things that I think curriculum development would do a lot for us.
It's interesting that Bob and I haven't had that conversation, but I know for a fact that people didn't wear seatbelts till children were taught in school to tell their mommy and daddies to belt them in.
That damn Ralph Nader.
And it started in schools. I mean, the children knew that. So maybe Bob has a point. Maybe we need to start at a younger age or whatever. But I do think that it is well beyond just the construction industry or the painting industry or remodelers, do-it-yourselfers. It is a significant issue, and I'm glad the press is helping us in some ways, talking about the lead paint on toys and other issues, and now the playgrounds with their chip tires. But we need to even take it further to probably the more emotive heart issues, like that picture that I keep trying to bring out to everybody of that loving father and coating his child with lead dust. I mean, that gets you, and you don't forget it when you keep going. I know I haven't forgotten it. So, yeah, it's a bigger picture. But beyond all that picture, how do we reach people? How do we reach people to let them know that there are resources for them to make better decisions? Because right now they don't even know where those resources are. So that's part of it.
I would certainly rather it not be, citing someone for having violated our rule. That's going to, one citation in a small town, that news travels. Yeah. But it didn't teach. Mm-hmm. It's necessary under the under the rule to it levels the playing field for those that have done the right thing and become certified as renovators. They've certified their firms. They've bought HEPA vacuums. They've bought equipment, rolls of sheeting, plastic sheeting, and they've got all this equipment invested. And yet there's the guy out there that's, driving around. He's got a few tools in the back of his pickup truck, stops and says, "Hey, I'll paint your house for you. I'll scrape all that paint off and I'll do it so..."
Or get out the electric sander.
Do it for you so reasonable that you can't resist. But yet, this is what homeowners...
But if you're licensed and you're bonded and you're insured and you're lead certified and you pay your employees legally and you follow all the rules and you really, really do care, it's tough to compete with that guy that goes around with the truck and is willing to do it for much less and doesn't care about the lead thing, or even know about it. Maybe it's not that he doesn't care, but he may not know about the lead.
Contractors deserve to have enforcement in this program,
and so do homeowners.
In order to make it,
homeowners do too, without realizing it. Homeowners oftentimes need to be protected because they are busy running and managing their lives.
Again, they didn't learn it from their fifth graders,
no,
or their junior high students.
They didn't learn it from their fifth graders,
or their senior high students.
Yeah.
That we could do so much.
So let's be specific here, and can you please tell us what are the rules and regulations around lead when it comes to healthy home renovation and construction here in the state of Washington?
Okay. Well, houses built, or residential properties built before 1978, and child-occupied facilities. It's required that a person has the renovation certification. It's a 1-day, 8-hour class. At the end of that class, you take an exam that, if you're listening, you'll easily pass it. Mm-hmm. And
True.
And then you receive your certification from the training firm. You're almost ready to go. The next step would be to either work for someone who has a lead-based paint firm certification, but that's pretty reasonable to do for anyone. It's a really, it doesn't take, a wealthy person to start a business doing painting and to learn the techniques. But the 1-day class is what it takes, and an open mind and a person who will think outside the box and find a way of containing the work area so that none of the chips, debris, and dust get away from them. And it's all down on the containment. So that's basically how it works.
Can I put in a shameless plug?
Sure.
A shameless plug out there. One of the things that I discovered in working with folks in the construction industry, oftentimes when they say sit in a class and take a test, it's a big eye roll. They have a bit of a concern. I don't want to take no class. I don't want to take no test, And you know what? They're right. Everybody has that sense. And truthfully, with the four of us in TM4 coming out of the construction industry, most of us probably felt the same way. Yeah. Our class, we decided to be more hands-on, more experiential, because people who are in the construction industry like to do things. They want to be active. They want to build, you know. I mean, they want to be using their hands and thinking things through and such. So one of the things that we've done and still complied with EPA and Department of Commerce, we've really taken it above book learning, above just sitting and listening to somebody spout off a whole bunch of stuff that I'm going to forget the minute I leave, you know, regurgitate on the test. They actually do the work that they would do on a regular site.
Yeah.
So they're wrapping things and taping things and containing things and all of the things. It's very practical, hands-on. And I think it's the best method of learning. I think if you do it, you learn it. If someone talks at you, you don't.
Well,
So-
it's not really a test, like, in some sense. I mean, I've been a painting contractor since I was a kid. I'm not that educated, but I was able to pass that test. And really what it is it's taking the time to learn
That's right.
and understand why this is important.
The principle.
And why that this is the rules and the laws. It's not about making anybody wrong or making anybody bad or anything. It's really, everybody is here to work together with and assist each other and making this. This is ultimately a planet, and this is a state and a country and a planet that we're all in together. And this is one of the many things that we got going on that are, assisting people to get to a better place in life. There's a lot of ways that the state can get money or the government can get money from the people that would be a lot less effortful than trying to go out and condemn people for not being like mindful and responsible about issues of toxicity and stuff in the home.
You know, and today we've spent a lot of time talking about children's health-related issues, but truthfully, lead is way beyond that.
Yeah.
Once lead is in our dirt and we choose to grow vegetables and tomatoes, they absorb that lead. They're like magnets, and then we eat that. So we're talking about lead in many, many different ways. Today we just chose to focus on children's health, but really this is an environmental health issue as well. Very much so.
Yeah. So what has been the advantage, referring to the lead paint renovation, the law and the rule, what has been the advantage for the citizens of Washington State?
Well, a large number of contractors have been trained. They're available to do work for folks. Also, the certification cost with the when the EPA administered the rule in Washington State, up until March 16th of last year, they did administer the rule, and they charge $300 for a firm certification, in opposed to the state of Washington at $25. I think that was a deriving reason that the rule was, passed by our legislature. I know for a fact that it was a driving rule. When you would hear what was mentioned on the floor right before the vote, the final vote in the Senate, it was pretty obvious that was what it was all about.
And as Bob mentioned, I actually watched that particular session, and at the same time that the rule and the enforcement piece of the EPA lead paint rule was all coming down, simultaneously the construction industry was going through what I call its compression. And it was getting tight and smaller and such. It was becoming more and more difficult. So the fact that Washington State has made this significant contribution to help those in the housing industry who actually work in the industry, work in as remodelers or builders or whatever, by reducing the cost of doing business from $300 to $25 is really something people don't talk about. But that's been a real advantage. Yeah. It's been a real advantage to the business.
And once again, it's not really about the money anyhow. It's really about getting people to sit in and learn this and understand.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I think that, the EPA has a limited number of people that can do the enforcement work, and they have, a vast region Region 10 has 2 states, Alaska and Idaho, that are that they administer, and that's a lot of travel to get that work done. And I think that having a state program, I know that travel across our state is expensive as well, and so we're looking into alternative enforcement measures, and I think we're going to have some success with that, because the rule has the requirement to do record keeping.
Yeah.
That record keeping has to be kept for 3 years from that project. So that would, the folks that are out there working out of the back of the truck and they're not paying any attention to the rules that are required, they're not going to know what record keeping even means.
Yeah.
And when we request their records, we have the authority to do that. And when we don't get back the certifications they need, right there, they can't flim-flam that. We've got the records who is certified and who is not. So
another benefit to the people of Washington State, actually, to the homeowners that can trust that they can hire somebody. There's a website. It's very simple. If you're getting 3 bids, if you're a knowledgeable homeowner that's going to do X project, and you've decided, okay, I'm going to look up these 3 companies, get 3 bids, you can go online and check to make sure they have their certification and that they've, taken this course. Some of those who've taken the Healthy Homes 8-week intensive course, they'll show you their certification, and you've got someone that cares, going to care about your family and how they leave the premise. So
yeah.
Homeowners should ask.
That's correct.
To ask,
they need to ask.
Are you a certified renovator?
That's correct. And that should be common practice for every homeowner. It should be on their checklist when they're interviewing someone to do work for them. That should be one of the questions on that checklist immediately.
At least if their home is built before 1978, we've got to make sure that that's the case.
Correct.
Because it's exempted for us, 1978. January 78, all the way up till today.
Yeah. That's correct. That's correct.
So what are the challenges in getting the renovation contracting firms to buying into getting certified as lead renovators, aside from the legal aspect?
Well, I think it makes them professionals. I think they have ramped their training up to a higher level than, what we have done in the past. Here, people are, doing containment work. No one likes to have their home left dusty from some contractor in their home working with taking out a wall or, all that dust from the
So lead or not, you should be doing that anyhow.
That's correct.
Right. It's the way they've been doing it. Well, for the most part, but
the responsible contractors are.
Yeah, I mean, it sets them apart, I think, from others when they are required and they're willing to do it and leave a home safe.
So let's just give us a quick glance into what the legal ramifications are of not being certified and working on a project that is necessarily to be certified because it's filled with lead.
Well, in Washington State, we have a schedule of penalties. First day penalties are usually all that has to be done when we go out on a site and find a contractor that's just not in compliance whatsoever. So they're usually in violation of four sections of code, and that's $500 per section. We'll write a citation. And, of course, there's, several layers of hearings that they're, welcome to, get in touch with the folks that do that. And, on the citation, we direct them to that so that, there is a way to take the sting out of the penalty. But, a $2,000 penalty on the first day, and, I could be back tomorrow, I'll tell them, and, they get it. But when we do a citation, we always have, with us firm certification application. They can fill that out right then and there, and it's a $25 fee for that. I've got the training schedule with me, usually for the next day or two, and I say, look, if you Get yourself trained. I'll give you credit for 2 people trained. We'll deduct that from the penalty. So that and the firm certification, so they can come out of it with something around $525 or something like that, $550 or so. That could be reduced from that $2,000 penalty, And still, it's a big sting in this economy, and we understand that, But we also, they are out of bounds here, and there is a penalty, and we will find ways to mitigate that by payment plans and things like that, so that and a lot of times if there's some good reasons, they'll get a hearing and things can be made a little easier as well.
Actually, I think the state of Washington is incredibly generous. I'm going to kind of do a flip side here. The reason being is because in states where the state is not operating the enforcement code, that means that EPA is honoring it.
And that's like what, 40?
$34,000, and those can be multiples of $34,000
for every section of code.
Just like
the 4 or 5 that we cite for, it's $37,500 at the federal level. Yeah.
So when you're talking about what is the value to our industry in Washington State, the value is that they're running a business and operating a business here. So it really behooves them to get their certification and take care of it. But if they were operating anywhere else, the penalties could be, oh my goodness, how many times greater? So
even the fees.
Do the math.
I've done a fee comparison across all the 12 states that administer their own rule. And our fees are the lowest in those 12 states. So in other words, we're the lowest in the 50 states.
Exactly. So Washington, I think, has been really, really generous, and we've had a highly organized housing industry here. In Washington State, I think that it's been very proactive in working for the industry. I think that's been a very good thing because they've also provided a lot of training and education for the industry. But again, I think most people in the industry need to think of this not as this horrible big bad government coming to get me in and making me pay all these fees, because when they look in reality across the nation, it's not too far across the border and you would be paying $100,000 for the violations.
So, of course.
Go ahead. I would like to add, though, for those who have had their certification and have been absorbing the cost and doing the right thing, when they see someone out there that's just off the chart, they it's the right thing to do to inform us of that, and get these people turned around. They're taking food right off that. Yeah. The contractor, they're taking the food right off his table. Yeah. And we want a level playing field, and
And not to mention the fact, by the way, I mean, I'm a house painting contractor, and I see. I think we're probably one of the few people that you ever see having, aside from some of the projects of the the remodelers and the people that are putting the additions on, some of the responsible companies. But as far as a house painting is concerned, we spend all summer long painting houses, and we don't even see any containment or tarps. And most of the neighborhoods we work in, the houses are at least 100 years old.
Yeah. Last year, our first year of enforcement began after April 21st of 2011, and so we're just about around to our full year, and it's about 1 in 5 that we cite, and it's often painters. They're very visible. Unfortunately, they're the ones that are seen, and and we get a lot of tips and complaints on that.
And the reason I mentioned it is not because of the taking the food off the table, which is very, very true, but the fact is they're out there contaminating the neighborhoods.
They're harming kids. They're leaving harm potential harm to kids.
Yeah. And potential harm to anybody that can move into that home. When I was talking about the fact that the dirt now is toxic, the next family may choose to come
I've
in.
seen them dig out all the dirt
That's
out
right.
of yards.
That's
and stuff.
right.
That's crazy.
So even as Bob says, sometimes we need to be the eyes and ears when we see somebody perhaps not doing reasonable, sensible, safe practice. We have to be the eyes and ears to help them to make sure that they learn how to do that. And so if that's a tip and complaint, that's what we need to do. There is a wonderful brochure that's available. You can talk about the Renovate Right brochure. Very simple. You can give someone a link if you feel that they're not doing something correctly. Say, please take a look at this, or you can have it and hand it to them, whatever it may be. But again, that's all part of this outreach. How do we keep people safe? And that's pretty much the line, I think.
We've had several. I've seen or heard the PSAs, public service announcements, that EPA has done, and it's not the be all and end all. When I worked for EPA, we did a lot of trade shows and different kinds of venues. I've done a governor's safety conference, and pretty much those folks that are involved in those things, the vendors are already on board with the renovator rule.
They are.
And, so that wasn't a great way to publicize this program, but we have to do everything and anything that we can. I've spoke with Building Industry Association of Washington a couple of times, Master Builders, Pearson King, and those folks are already engaged. They're ready to do the right thing way before the rule.
Those are the early adopters.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's just terrific that those organizations are doing good things. And I know I probably talked to a few of their folks out in the field, and they're already up to speed, and they're pulling my leg, telling me, "No, I'm not certified." And over time, they bring out their cert, and they're doing it. Yeah. So.
Well, we're going to take a very short break, and we'll be right back with the rest of the interview.
Thank you.
You are listening to GreenerViews.
Gravity connects me to the earth, which connects me to people who connect me to myself more honestly. And gravity connects me to the crust, which connects to the leaves on the trees that make it possible to breathe.
Came to rest on the minefield, blessed with naive mind shield, like a helmet. They would tell us that we don't know how we feel or how to connect with other people on the planet. Oh, if we only knew the power in each blue, disillusion little. In the vision of one resides all, destroy the individual, for this is critical. The self ain't everything, has to grasp, to cling, to mask material vastly shipwrecked beings. At last, release the greed amassed with capitalist tasks and contact. The mass communication is all we have in dwindling fast.
Okay, we're back. We like to joke about, during the break, Gretchen and Bob were, during the hip-hop music, they were breakdancing on the floor. They're pretty darn good.
Well,
too,
if I
by the way.
broke dance, something would be broke.
Well, I worked up a sweat doing that.
Well, whatever that was, you were definitely getting jiggy with it, as Will Smith would say. Anyhow, let's see. So welcome back to episode 30 of GreenerViews and our conversation with Gretchen Stewart from TM4 Group and Bob Angeline. Is that correct? Great.
Yep.
From the Washington State Department of Commerce, lead safety or
Lead-based paint program.
Lead-based paint program. And so we've got a couple of questions here from the conversation we've been having, and then we're going to get into a couple of the hippy-dippy questions, and then we're going to get into the logistical stuff, and then we're going to likely have each of you on together again, or maybe even separately or something, and get into some of the other stuff, because this has been really exciting for me. I mean, as a person that's completely drenched into this lead-based thing, all the time, like every day. And the work that I've been doing with Doug and some of the other companies and stuff, it's just, this is my caffeine. I'm not exactly sure what that meant, but I said it, and we're not going to erase it. So how can we be more effective in protecting our families and others from the dangers of lead dust, and other construction-related issues? You guys can both take that.
Research. Don't take anything for granted. Ask lots of questions and take a look. I mean, with the internet nowadays, it's real simple to put in some simple keyword searches and come up with some information. But, there are a couple of really solid sites. One is going to be, of course, and I'll let Bob address what's on that site, but Department of Commerce lead paint site, excellent, but also the EPA's site for lead paint and healthy homes. There's another one, which is the National Center for Healthy Homes, who has a wonderful, very easy to understand, very eloquent series of pages on lead paint, identifying it, and not just the rule, but how to protect your family as well. So I would say that. Also, after today, Daryl, I think what I'm going to do, I have a series of links that, as I mentioned before, it's not just about paint, it's not just about kids, it's about lead and asking all the right questions. I have a series of links that I think I'll provide to you that maybe your listeners would like to come back and check your website, and they can click on these links, and each one of them is going to give them reputable information and help them formulate their checklist for the questions they want to ask.
Can you tell us like one or two of the most important ones off the top of your head right now?
There's actually one today that I just went in on. I haven't been in for quite some time. And actually I wrote it down. It's called healthychild.org. And they just posted a wonderful little video vignette. It's called The Wake Up Story. And I really appreciated it. I mean, I'm entrenched in this with children's environmental health and lead and being a trainer and an educator. And when I saw this, I thought, oh, this is going to resonate with people all ages. Your child could watch this with you and appreciate it. So healthychild.org. Excellent. And their particular mission sort of took me today, too, because in a way, it's probably what my mission is. I talk about education and outreach. I mean, that's where I come from. Yeah. I'm not out doing the painting or the scraping, but I'm out there hopefully helping people to formulate the right questions to do the work safely. So theirs I loved. It says, we ignite the movement that empowers parents to protect children from harmful chemicals, and lead is one of them. So that site is one that I think was particularly effective and efficient for me today. And one more totally off the chart, I mentioned it to Daryl, and hopefully this is someone that will speak to this in one of a future podcasts, but now in King County and the greater Seattle, Pierce County area, there's actually a site called Pesticide Free Play Areas. And I love that site. And I'm going to give that to Daryl for you to put up on your website. I think people are going to love to be able to go to that. It's an interactive map, so people can know where they can take their children and their pets, so that the pets aren't tracking all these chemicals into their homes too, where they can take them and have just a wonderful time and know that they're, chemically free, so to speak. So I'll get some of those up for you, okay?
Great. Yeah, the Puget Sound is a pretty hip place. It
is pretty hip, yeah.
So how about you? What do you got to say about all that?
I'd like to, let folks know that I enjoy taking calls in our office, and we have a line, and I'm going to, post that on this show, that they can call, and each one of us, there's 4 in our office that are really good at taking calls, and I love to do that when I'm in the office. And I'm one that has a lot of experience working with contractors as opposed to some of the others, and to engineer a project for a homeowner that's trying to do it themselves. We want to do that too. It's not just about doing enforcement, compliance assistance. It's about, spreading this program so that anybody at any economic level can do it right and not harm anyone. So that's one thing. And when they do it yourself work, the manual that I mentioned earlier, called Lead Paint Safety, a field guide for painting, home maintenance, and renovation work. It goes through step by step on, what kind of a hazard lead is, how it's hazardous to you when you're working in your home, what you can do, what kind of a vacuum you should have to use. Maybe you don't have the funds for a vacuum. There's wet methods that are mentioned in this manual. So we'll certainly get that on the screen. As well as, if you're going to hire a contractor, our website, it lacks many things, but what it does have is a contractor list there, and you can search by the city you live in and find a list of the contractors in that town. And, we have quite a large base. There's probably around 2,500 to 3,000 contracting firms that are certified, and so just about anywhere you live.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, you'll be able to find someone that can do that work for you. But as far as other additional reading to find out, if you spend time at EPA's website on the lead page, you want to go to the renovation and repair and painting page, and that's what's really current and a lot of good information there. Check out their resources. They have a page with how-to reference material, and that's where you'll find this lead-based safety manual. We used to have good stock of them that were hard copy bound pages, and they're about 80 pages long, but used to be able to slip them in an envelope, manila envelope, and send them out to folks. I wished I could still.
But they are on the internet.
Yeah, they're on the internet, and they're so good. I tell them at least, read, a little bit each day before you start your project, and you're more than likely going to be able to do it at a reasonable cost and not harm anybody.
There's also on the EPA website now, it's fairly new in the last few years, a lot of people don't know it's there, but the Children's Environmental Health website is also there. And let's cover there. And keep in mind, children aren't just at home. So there's a lot of good information about schools and school environment, too, because most of our schools were built before 1978. So
not so healthy, a lot of them.
So there's a lot of things there too. So when you tap into that, you can always use Children's Environmental Health in your keyword search as well, and that's helpful as well. And then, of course, if anyone really wants some more in-depth, there's Healthy Homes that goes into every imaginable thing in terms of materials and indoor air quality and ventilation and mold and all of the others, and would be pleased to pass that information on. And I'd like to offer up, as Bob said, too, he's available by phone. I'm not always, because of the teaching environment. Oftentimes our phones are off, but my email will be posted, and I've given express permission that people can certainly contact me. And if I can't answer the question, at least I can find someone that can.
Yeah,
and
we'll
I'd be
mention
pleased
all
to do
that
that
information at the very
you
last
bet.
part
Be
of the show.
pleased to do it. You bet.
And make sure I get all those links and those books and references.
I'll
and
make
stuff.
sure that that's all there for you.
Great.
You mentioned schools, and in many cases it's junior high and high school, and no children under the age of 6, so it would be excluded at this time.
That's correct.
Unless there's a daycare
attached to the
in a
school.
school, or kindergarten. There's some that are under the age of 6. Coming in a couple of years, there'll be public buildings and commercial buildings as part of this rule. So,
because they're
Stay
all shared,
tuned.
they're all shared with kids.
you know what happened? The same thing happened with the asbestos rule. It only had a limited application in schools,
which
to
is
start
kind of
with.
ridiculous.
And then it built on. Of course, the OSHA wing here in the state of Washington, Labor and Industries, they regulate all of that sort of thing. And so and the clean air agencies, regulate all the migration of dust from a home. So just like asbestos rule became public buildings and commercial buildings as well with the Ashara Act. Same thing with the lead. It's just it's evolving.
So, Daryl, we may have to have another session.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what I just heard. What do you think?
So the thing is,
I think we're on to session B here.
the good news is contractors are getting trained today. Are going to be the professionals of the future working in public and commercial buildings. They'll be the ones that know what they're doing. And they'll get those projects. It's a profession.
It is a profession. You're right.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, we're gonna get to the rest of the stuff on the next time around, and we're not done yet, but we'll get a little bit more deeper into the to the lives and the backgrounds of Gretchen and Bob as well when we meet again. But for right now, let's see. I got my I got my pages a little messed up over here. So do I have everything? Okay, I got it here. So before we wrap it up, let's take care of the logistical information. Let's start with you, Gretchen, as to the best way for others to check out what you do, which contact, and you can choose to use or eliminate any of these choices here.
Sure.
Phone numbers, email address, web links, anything that you'd like to share.
You bet. You can always head to our site. It's a really simple site to remember. That's TM and the number 4 group. So Tom, Mary, the number 4, the word group.com. So TM4group.com. And on that site, there's all this information about lead paint, but you'll also find a lot of other interesting articles. Try to change it out. I think the most interesting article on there right now, besides the healthy homes, is the fact that women need to realize that there's lead in every single lipstick that they choose to put on their lips. So all you men out there, get real cautious about what you're kissing, okay?
Some of us men might be using that too.
Some guys too, you betcha. But all the cosmetic industry, there's just been a lot of information that just broke that almost all the cosmetics that are out there, face cleaners and lipsticks, are all filled with lead right now. So it's something for all of us to be aware of. So that's on there, but check back when you need. And in terms of reaching me, Daryl, anytime anyone has a question and they want to reach me with that question and find out a good resource for information, I'm going to spell it out. It's my email address, and you can go to Gretchen AJ. That's GretchenAJ at USA.net. And I'd be thrilled to help anyone out there. So Gretchen AJ at USA.net. And I'm with TM4 Group, and pleased to be.
And maybe on the next show, we'll tell everybody what TM actually means.
No, Daryl, we're not going there. Okay. that's session 3. How's that?
That's session 3. Okay. And so how about you, Bob? What phone numbers, email address, web link, any of those you'd like to share with us?
Our web link is, our website is at www.commerce.wa, W-A that is, .gov/lead. And my email address is bob.angeline. That's spelled ANGELINE at commerce.wa.gov. And I do enjoy getting a call from someone that needs a little help. They're trying to do it themselves, and this is there's plenty of contractors out there, but I can, in our economic times, I think it's important to help those folks. So my telephone number is area code 360-725-2929. So
great.
Glad to take the call.
Great, and we'll have all that up, and make sure we get that email.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that leads to so it generally takes us about a week to get the episode up. And so thinking about at least a couple of weeks out, are there any upcoming events, or we'll start with you, Gretchen, any upcoming events or special offers or other information that you'd like to share with us?
Yes, thanks. I'm glad we have a couple minutes for this. We've talked about and made reference to the Healthy Homes class several times, the 8-week, very in-depth series. And that class actually starts the 12th of April. And it's 8 consecutive Thursdays. And there's a couple of Saturdays in there where you actually have the opportunity to go into a home and actually view all the principles that you're learning. And anyone who's currently unemployed in the industry, or if you are underemployed in the industry, because it works both ways, unemployed or underemployed, there's actually grant funding available for someone to take this course so that they can build their portfolio to become a better professional, to really become a professional and understand all of these rulings, the lead ruling and many, many other things with healthy homes. So that class begins April 12th. Contact me right away. I have that email address I gave you, GretchenAJ@USA.net, and I'd glad to get you hooked up with the grant as well. The other thing is the next RRP training for TM4. So anyone out there who's been listening who hasn't gotten their certification to become that true construction professional, we want to make sure that you can get that too. And that next class is April 17th, and I can also be contacted and help you with that particular course. Coming up in May, we've got David Johnson coming up with Green Building 101. I mean, this is an amazing course. David only gifts us with his presence here in the Pacific Northwest once a year, and usually it's around May, so we're real pleased. And information's on the website
And we're
about
hoping
that.
to get him on the show.
Yeah, Daryl's going to try and get him on the show. We'll see what we can do about
Gretchen's
that.
going to do it.
Oh, dear. Add to the task list. Add to the task list.
I don't even know the guy.
He's wonderful. I
Yeah.
worked with David when I was at Master
I've
Builders.
heard nothing but amazing
Genius,
things about the guy.
genius.
Yeah.
It's truly a genius, and he's fun and funny. So when you're learning, you're really engaged in what he's instructing. So he will be here in May, and we're looking forward to that. Information's on the website as well. Oh golly, we could go on and on. Containment. Daryl just assisted in getting a wonderful containment video, which is part of the RRP rule, and that'll be up on our website. I bet you it will be on Daryl's website here soon as well. And Mother Earth. Mother Earth Fair's coming up.
Yeah.
And Bob's joining at Mother Earth Fair, so there's a lot of stuff going on.
You
Yeah.
took my thunder.
Go for it, Bob.
The
one thing.
the one lead paper program.
Sorry about
But
that.
I can say this: that TM4 has done a really great job,
And we're all in this together.
We're
together.
all, you
Yeah.
bet.
and you know, to work with you folks, I really value the opportunity to be here tonight to help people understand our program and get this message out is so very vital.
Yeah. Mother Earth Fair, is that the 3rd and 4th of June? Bob, do you know what
second
day
and third?
2nd and 3rd of, and it's at the Puyallup Fairgrounds.
Yeah.
Wonderful event to take your children to. Great event. You'll learn to build straw bale houses. Your kids are going to love it, along with dozens of other incredibly creative things. So might want to add that to the event list as well.
I would love to get a straw bale home builder on the show.
Oh, we can help you with that one. I can do that one for you.
Good. Well, super. Well, listen, let's see, before we head out here, do you have any, we'll start with you, Gretchen. Do you have any wise advice or helpful hints, final words that you want to leave us with tonight?
Oh, no, not another shameless plug, perhaps. My wise words are going to come through a character in a children's story series called Clemson Crawdad. It's all about nature, nurture, and character. And so watch for Pondtails to hit your doors here soon in the websites. And that's where my wise words will come.
I have no idea what you're talking about. We can talk about that afterwards. How about you, Bob? Any
I want to see
any words of wisdom for us?
Fifth graders need to learn about this, and they can be the leaders.
That's right.
Yeah. The kids are our future, and the planet will ultimately be the winner.
That's right.
Let's see. So you have been listening to, and by the way, we will likely be back sometime in the near future with more of this. We honestly didn't even touch on probably about half to 2/3. Let's see. Is how much we hit on, so we still got quite a bit. You've been listening to episode 30 of GreenerViews, which I believe, Randy, is probably our longest episode yet at this point. Yeah. We'd like to thank both of our guests, and it's been the first time in quite a while that we've had 2 guests. So we've got Gretchen Stewart from TM4 Group and Bob Angeline
From Department of Commerce.
from Department of Commerce lead-based program, lead pay program.
Thanks for the opportunity, Darryl.
Yes.
We love you, and we thank you for sharing a bit of your world through this podcast interview. We hope you enjoyed your time spent with us today. It's been really great for me. I've got my pages all messed up here, so let's see. On our next show, episode 31, I'm just really, I would have never thought that would have got to 31 episodes, and I got a lot to say that I could take up a lot more time, but Doug Kennedy, and I first met him at the Healthy Homes, the National Healthy Homes training a couple of years back, and the reason I found out about that is when I changed my painting business to Healthy Painting about 4 or 5 years ago. I just made a cold call out of the blue to the American Lung Association and started chit-chatting with Eileen Gagney, never met her, and that's kind of how the whole thing got started, honestly, with my transition with my painting business and with this podcast. So it's just been a real joy for, and I met Doug there, and he's been on the show again, and I know he's going to come back on again, I hope later this summer. We've talked about that. But the other person I met with him was John Alexander, and he'll be on the show next week from Sunshine Construction, and he is an advocate and extremely knowledgeable about all this stuff, and just so happens to be a part of TM4 group, but I think we'll probably be talking a little bit less about that and more about the stuff that he's been doing. On behalf of myself, Daryl Whalen, and our crew, our posse, Randy Parcel and Michael Schwartz, we'd like to say a heartfelt thank you. Special consideration goes to AmbrosiaDigitalMedia.com. Please check them out. Music for this and every episode is provided with permission by John Henry Scully of slapjazz.com, Dan Fagens at danfagens.bandcamp.com, his new ID, and JD Hobson at jdhobson.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts on ideal guests and topics for the show. You can email us info@greenerviews.net. It's up there, and let's see, or call us 206-650-4587. Make your day extra special by checking out greenerviews.net and youtube.com/greenerviews for the video version of our episodes. And lastly, GreenerViews is a part of the Healthy Homecast network, so please go check out the other like-minded podcasts, which at the moment there are none, but
soon to be released.
Yeah, we're working on we had one, and it's kind of a little bit down, but we're working on bringing a brand new one, which will be, I'm really, really excited about. And like-minded businesses over at healthyhomecast.com. Thank you to everyone who has made this podcast possible. Here is to the health, happiness, and well-being of all. And Michael always makes us wave bye-bye.
Thanks, all.
We're talking about a lot about little kids in this episode. We'll be like the little kid driving away from mommy and daddy. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you for listening. GreenerViews is part of the Healthy Homecast network. Check out all their conscientious and sustainably focused podcast programs and businesses at healthyhomecast.com. GreenerViews is created, developed, and produced by Daryl Whalen. Our audio engineer is Randy Parcel. Our video producer is Michael Schwartz of AmbrosiaDigitalMedia.com. Music for this episode was provided by slapjazz.com, danfagens.bandcamp.com, and jdhobson.com. Your feedback is important. Please feel free to contact us with any comments or questions, including suggestions for guests and program topics. You can call us at 206-650-4587 or send a direct email to info@greenerviews.net. Be sure to check back often. New episodes coming soon.